Old Time Gray here. Made myself a portable toolbox for my old Milwaukee 167 7-inch body grinder with room for extra discs, extra accessories. I made it out of 18 gauge sheet metal. I'll show you how I did it. So here's the object of our next project. My old Milwaukee U167 heavy duty body grinder. I love this thing. I rebuilt it some years ago. It's gotten a little bit of gear rattle in it, so it might be going away on me again, but for now, it's when I need some serious grinding, this thing comes out, and believe me, nothing gives you any argument once you start using this. But I don't have a good box for it. So I'm going to make a sheet metal toolbox out of 18 gauge steel. Let's take a few measurements. It looks like it wants to be at least 9 inches tall. For storing spare discs, they come in packs that are 2.5 to 3 inches deep. I think I'm going to store them next to the handle like this inside the box. So that means the widest part of the box needs to be 3 inches wider than the handle, plus some clearance, plus room for the cord on the other side. So that would mean going from the center let's call that 5 inches. So it needs to be about 10 inches wide on the inside. For length, with enough room for the strain relief so the cord isn't crammed in there. Looks like 19 or 20 is the right number. So here's our plan. 20 inches long, 10 inches wide, 9 inches deep, with a split of about 7.5, an inch and a half between the lid and the base box. Here's our sheet metal, piece of 18 gauge. So we'll lay this out. I'm going to start at the front. So we'll call this the front. That's going to be 7.5 tall. And then I've got a lip on the top of the front to catch the lid. I'm going to allow 1/4 for that. And then the lip itself, I'm going to allow a 1/2 inch for that. So overall 8.25 on the front. And the bottom is 10, which would go to 18.25. Plus I'm going to allow a 1/4 inch bend allowance, which takes us to 18.5. And the back is 7.5. So 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do that again. Okay, to make the cut, the weapon of choice is going to be the old Skill Saw 77, the metal cutting blade. As I've said in some other videos, these things are wonderful, but they throw a lot of chips. Not many sparks, but a lot of chips. So you're going to get bombarded with metal shards. So suit up. I take the opportunity to deburr the edges of the sheet metal, just a simple deburring tool. Okay, time to start folding. Now the first bend we need to make is the front lip. You want to do as much with the sheet metal while it's flat as you can. So I'm going to work in the front edge. That is the lip under the lid. So I'm going to go 3/4 because the back set's going to be about 1/4 inch, maybe a little less, and then it'll leave about a 1/2 inch lip. So I'll mark that there and there. Okay, because of the way my brake is set up, it gives a little bit of a generous radius. I want to tighten that up for the inner lip, and then I want to make the back fold. So I'm going to do those with the Cleco and what they call flow forming, so it's loud. Okay, got her clamped up. This strap is right dead over the edge of this angle iron that's on the edge of my bench. So here goes. I'm going to flip the sheet over, put it the other way, and I'm going to bend the lip, bend the lip up. So now the strap is behind the bend. I'm just going to start it over with the hammer. I flipped the plate back over and I switched back to the softer head. This is still a steel head, but it's rounded. I'm going to work out the hammer marks all along from the pounding out the backside. And here's our lip. Worked out a lot of the hammer marks with the soft face. And when I sand that and grind it, the rest of this will disappear. Box is going to be 7.5 inches tall. And on the back we get a piano hinge. So that's going to be truly 7.5. So I'll mark that here. And then the bottom, the front, from the bottom of the lip, because the lid goes into the lip, is also 7.5. So I'm going to go from the bottom of the lip that we just made, 7.5. Part of the way I designed this brake is so I could bolt the upper and lower jaws together in the middle of big bends. I know I'm going to drill a hole through my sheet metal, but I'll patch it up later. It's easy to do. So just 1/4 inch drill. A little bit of overbend. Now I'm going to gauge back 10 inches for the bottom using my handy dandy speed square. Starting to look like a box already. So there's a front lip. There's the old Milwaukee. There's the back. So the hard part's over. This is the rest of this is easy. So we'll make the ends, make the lid. Close up here. I got a little ding right there. Right there, looks like. Nice and straight now. Sides. So the box is 10 1/4 outside to outside. So I gotta have a 1/2 inch flange on the front of it and 1/2 inch flange on the back. Means that the side panels have to be 11 1/4. I got this gnarly looking scrap here that is just over 11 1/4. not perfect, but it was so close to 11 1/4. You can see some spots where it's just under. Okay, there's side one, 8 3/4 tall. It's 7 1/2 for the side, and then a 3/4 inch for the lip at the top. Here's another way to fold the lip that I'm going to use on the sides. It's a little easier in a way, and it's a little tougher in a way. The easiest way is to go get a bead roller, but I've been resisting that for years, and I will continue to for a little while anyway. So I have this clamped above the angle iron on my bench, and the lip distance, 1/2 inch plus plate thickness, a little more than a 32nd, hanging free over the edge of the angle iron. I get a little paranoid, but I check and recheck dimensions and still manage to screw things up. Okay, reef it down good and tight, because this sheet metal is gonna try to get out of here. So here's the tool. It's a hardware store reinforcement strap. Here's the persuader, Bell Telephone cross peen hammer. Okay, once that's bashed down, take the Cleco to it. And there we have two sides, left and right. Lips are in them. Now we just need to fold the flanges all the way around and cut out the corners to match the lips on the front and the piano hinge on the back. Before going any further, I'm going to sand the inside of the panels and the box base itself. It's a lot easier to do it now. I'm going to use 40 grit on my old quarter cable speed block. To start making the folds in the sides, I'm just gauging in a 1/2 inch on the front and the back, but not the bottom. Looking down the box here, to get the ends fitted up, we got to cut out the lower corners, the lip at the top, and the lip at the front to match to the box structure. So to do that, I'm just taking my scribe lines, or my gauge lines. I'm going to line the sides up, align the top flange of the side with the top flange or lip of the front. And then I'm going to stick it together and mark the bottom. So right about there. Good old welding magnet. Okay, the front's lined. Piece of dirty plywood as a stop. Another magnet. Okay, that looks righteous. To mark the bottom, as you can see, I'm working off the edge of the workmate. I'm just going to run the marker around. And I'm going to mark the inside of the flange and the location of the back. Now in the front corner, I want to wrap the little flap or the little ear from here around the front. So all I want to cut away is the ridge inside of the step here, of the step joint. I could use the body grinder to do this, or the angle grinder, but using the snips this morning. I just got to cut away a little bit of this to let in the flange from the side. On the bottom, the corners are very big radii. That's because of the generous bend radius I put on the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away 1 inch by 1 inch front and back. And the flanges for the front, bottom, and back will all be up or in 1 inch. We'll take care of that by welding to close those holes. And the flanges will be here, here, and here. Okay, chopping the waste out of these corners. So there's the side we just trimmed with the box sitting on top of it. You can see the flange, the corner fits nice, the back fits nice. So now I'm going to start folding the flanges up. Because of the way I designed my brake, I can work off the edge of it, so I can fold this front flange without worrying about disturbing this flange, so I can get them on 2 different planes. It takes a little bit of setup, but a lot of nuts and bolts and clamps and thinking through it, but it does what I need it to do. It's not like I'm using it for production, but it does get the job done. And you can see the new paint getting scraped off. Side panel. Here she is with both ends bent up and fitted up. So before I start welding, I'm going to make the interior pieces. Part one of the cradle is something to hold the grinder from going north, south, or east, west in the box. So I'm going to make a little socket out of sheet metal that'll go on the bottom of the box that this pad will rest into. I'll line it with felt or rubber or something. And I just made this little pattern out of a cereal box, and that radius is about right from this salsa container. And bite-sized shredded wheat. So get yourself a box of the shredded wheat and some salsa and a pair of scissors. And okay, I'm going to cut this out of sheet metal. I think I'm going to use this piece of junk. I say it looks like 22 gauge. That has really been abused. I sanded everything smooth just with the Dremel. And I'm going to take my diamond caulk sheet metal pliers and just finish the bends out on the ends, like so. And I'll clamp these down when I go to weld it. Fits like that. To make the cradle that goes under the handle, I'm going to make a piece that looks sort of like this. You can see that, but I'm going to need a piece of sheet metal about yay long. There's the development. It's about 1 foot long, 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to use this piece of junk that I found on the railroad tracks. Just so happens that this piece right here will just about do it. But first I'm going to knock all this junk off it. That's a job for the flap wheel. Lots of ways to do this. I'm just going to use my throatless Black & Decker 507. Could do it with an angle grinder or saber saw, but I like this. To start forming the cradle for the handle, I'm going to take a piece I just cut and mark the center right about 6 inches. And I have this piece of tubing here, and I'm going to bend this starting in the middle, starting in the center, around this tube, which is roughly the same width as the handle of the grinder. forms the bottom. Like that. Okay, I'm going to pick a point and fold down the sides. 3.5 inches. A piece of dirty plywood and a C-clamp. Don't really need a sheet metal brake for this. Sure it's roughly square. Okay, roughly square. Down she goes. There's these by hand. Bending them down. In this case, I will enlist the body hammer. Looks about right. To reinforce the cradle under the handle, put a crossbar in there that's 3 inches wide. This will do. 3 inches right there. Beautiful. Looking right down into the box now. Okay, the grinder in place in the cradles with the handle attached in the left-handed position. I'm left-handed. Looks like we have a space for 2 storage bays for discs and wheels. So obviously they're 7 inches in diameter. This is a 7-inch grinder. So 2 7-inch pockets right along in here that are about 3 inches deep. That's how big the packs of discs are. And that'll still leave room to get your hand in without hanging up on the sheet metal edges of the pockets. To keep the discs from falling out, they need to be at least, a little bigger than half as tall as these discs. So to make the pockets, I need 15 plus 3 is 18, plus flanges is 20, plus a center divider is another 3, plus flanges is 5, so 25 inches of 4-inch wide sheet. And I think I can get that all out of my out of this railroad remnant here. Actually, I'll pound it flat and then clean it up before I start cutting. So there's my 4 and change pieces, 4 1/4, something like that. Buzzed all that nastiness off there using one of these. I don't know what these are, but it looks like Scotch-Brite impregnated with something. They really knocked the hell out of the surface finish. But boy, is that stuff on there nasty. I don't know what those railroad people are using, but holy cow, is that stuff nasty. So you can see some dings and dents in it from, okay, I'm going to mark this up and cut it to size and start folding it, and I'll pound these out if I have to, or cut around them if I can. Okay, there's the bottom flanges. There's the return. There's the rear mounting flange. There's the side mount flange. And there's the pocket. You can see the whoop-de-doo there. I'll hammer that out. Okay, now we just need the pocket divider. Should just be a little Z-bend, nice and simple. Let me whip that out. Okay, there's the interior, all held together by magnets and masking tape. So pocket 1, pocket 2, plenty of room for the grinder with the wheel on it and the handle on it. Next step is to take apart the loose assembly, pop holes in for all of the plug welds, clean all the interior parts, and paint the interior pieces. Using my roper punch, you could obviously use a drill. I just find this to be a little quicker. Here it all is, ready for interior paint. It's going to be Italian satin olive paint and primer combo. I'm going to paint everywhere that's inside plus everywhere that's going to get a spot weld or a plug weld, so I don't have any trapped metal that isn't finished. Uh-oh, out of paint. No, off to the hardware store. Okay, this is not the finish coat. This is just to cover areas that are going to be hidden or hard to get at once it's welded together, and to make sure there's paint on the interior surfaces. Time for welding. So first thing I'm going to do is weld these holes shut. Then I'm going to weld the interior pieces together. Then I'm going to weld on the ends. Then I'm going to weld the interior pieces to the box. And then we'll go on to the lid. For all these welds where I got plug welds and paint behind them, I'm just going to take my little Dremel wire brush and just clean out the paint underneath, directly underneath the plug weld. Like so. Just laying out the cut and fold lines based on my cereal box plan here. Maple pecan clusters. So get you a box of those. Okay, the front and back are folded. Let's do an initial fit up. So front looks good. That's sitting on the ledge there. And the back. Back looks good too. Here's the hinge I'm going to use. It's just a steel powder coated piano hinge that I bought from McMaster. I just got to cut it down to size. The hinge mounts barrel facing out on the back, obviously. So I'm going to temporarily mount this with a couple of screws. Something I didn't record, just realized it, is one advantage to the roper punch is it's easy to cut oval shaped holes. You just overlap it, pow pow. And if you're aligning something like this where you've got a reference hole and it's something you're not quite sure where it's going to be, 2-3 little pops that overlap partially, you create a nice oval hole that makes it easy to adjust. Looking at the end of the box here, here's the hinge. And you can see that if we did our job right, the top of the ledge joint and the top of the hinge barrel match. So the lid sits nice and flush, nice and level. We're around back now. So there's the installed hinge. There's the center mark right there. And here's the 2 screws. So I marked the box right above those corresponding screws. And I'll punch the holes in the lid so that we can attach the lid temporarily. Okay, so it's matched on the corners. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to have to cut back on the corners just a wee bit. I'm going to take a few minutes now and just clean up these edges and the tabs with the Dremel tool. Just sand everything nice and smooth before I fold it up. All right, looking at the side here, we made a goof. I folded this at 1 1/4 inches, and our target height was 1 1/2 inches. And I forgot about that when we came around the front, and I folded this at 1 1/2 inches. So I got to whack 1/4 inch off of this. Much better. Now it's nice and even, 1 1/4 inches all the way around. For welding the lid, I drilled my little plug weld holes on the outside. I'm going to weld from the outside instead of from the inside like I did on the box. The handle is going to be a pretty conventional affair. It's just a metal kind of traditional toolbox handle. And the latch is going to be a single pendant style pull latch. I'm going to get those mounted up because I think I'm going to at least reinforce the handle. This top is pretty wide, so I don't want it to oil can. So I'll probably reinforce that underneath, but let me get those mounted. Is right there. And right there. Inches, so 6 back off 1/8, and then 5 3/4. Yes, sir, that works. So 2 holes on that line, 2 holes on that line. Striking a line down the center of the front. The latch has a little hook in the main body, so I'm going to put the hook just below the crown that I rolled into the edge here. So, all right, if I come down from here to here 1 5/16 inches, and then another 3/4 here. So I'll locate this first and mount this first. There the big fella is, all in one piece. I do want to add a couple of things though. First, I want to add a registry so that the top consistently engages the ledge joint on the bottom or the lap joint on the bottom. I want to reinforce the lid. This is very wide and I don't want it to oil can, so I'm going to figure out some kind of reinforcement here. Found this piece of offcut. I'm wondering if I can make a little channel beam out of it. Not much of a lip, but anything you can do, any fold you can put in sheet metal dramatically increases its strength. So let's see if this works. There we have it, homemade piece of channel. I think that'll work. To register the top onto the front ledge, I'm making two of these little tongues. I mount them like so, bend them to fit, and then I'll trim them off once the box is working and the lid goes up and down. For now, I'll just weld them in place. Everything in one piece, welded in our reinforcement, our registry ears, which I'll trim off later. This is just a peanut butter jar full of washers to be a counterweight. Close, turn the latch, and then those registry tongues pull that seam into line. I did screw up right here though. I had to cut this ear back. So I'm gonna have to patch that up and weld it somehow and grind it. I'll figure that out later. So I'm gonna put a weld stud here. Just a 5/16 weld stud. Just to hold stuff, like I can put an extra disc in there or anything that it can be held on with a wing nut and a washer. And then I'm going to add a foot to the inside of the lid to hold the grinder down during transport. and I'm going to make it out of this piece of junk, this piece of scrap, 18 gauge, or actually 19 gauge. And it's going to go off of the lid and just sit above the installed disc. And I'll insulate it with a little rubber or felt. So to measure it, I'm going to close the box. I removed one of the screws from the handle, and I'm just taking a piece of welding wire. I'm going to probe down in there. Oops. So it hits the disc. It's got to be that long. To properly locate this bracket, ended up looking like this little hat section. Stuck a couple of Imodium magnets on there. I'm going to sit it on the disc so she's not in line with the handle screws. I'm going to close the lid. And it wants to go right about there. But to make sure I've got enough clearance, I'm going to use the good old tried and true American innovation, a piece of chewing gum. That's about 3 sticks of Trident bubble gum. I'm going to close and latch. And she's smushed, but she's not pancaked. So take away the Imodium magnets and the bubble gum. I got enough room for felt. Should be good. Now it's a bunch of grinding and sanding and metal finishing and smoothing off rough edges. So I'm going to go do all that, and then it'll be time for paint. So there's the lid, all ground and sanded and wire brushed and cleaned. I'm going to now give it its coat of interior paint, same stuff as the box, and I'm going to give the box another coat on the interior. And there she is, all in one piece. So now I'm going to clean it up with a little bit of acetone, mask up the inside, and paint the outside. All right, paint time. Krylon red pepper. It's a Milwaukee grinder, so red is their color, but it's a slightly different red. I'm starting to like this color, so here it goes. Beginning final assembly. Nice stainless hardware. Some sticky back felt here. A little more sticky back felt. There she is, all done. All hardware installed. Looks nice. Nice color. Looks good with the black and stainless hardware on it. So here we are. Grinder, spare discs, spare cutoff wheels, some flange nuts, and a spare backing plate up on the lid. Even got room for my spanner, which I stuck at the bottom with a magnet. Stays in place. Opens and closes nice. All done. This came out nice. I'm going to leave this one here, and it's on to the next project. I will see you there and then.